All right, hello everybody. My name is Landon Porter. I am the creator of the World of Air, well as the Runebreaker series of books. And with me here is Shane Barrett, who is one of the playtesters for the game. Shane has actually played two different characters in the playtest. Would you like to start off by telling us a little bit about your two characters, Shane?
Absolutely. So my first character that I've played is Johnny. He's a Hylian who is a bard working for the Bardic College who has interesting recreational taste. But I will say that Johnny is a very interesting character in that he is all about buffing the party and avoiding physical combat in all ways possible. Then, because I decided to play the same character only completely different, I'm also playing Celeste, who is a soulless, also known as
Spirit Docent.
Spiritosin, who can summon the spirits of the dead, converse with them, and have them fight for her in an ongoing way. It's pretty awesome. It's all about screwing with the action economy because you have someone fighting out in front of you as you act as someone who can obviously be possessed by your ghost, or making your ghost slightly less powerful by not being possessed by them. You can instead cast your spells, which your spells are weaker than most other caster spells, but they are great debuffs and or buffs for your character. So, in all, I've been playing a lot of the odd type characters in terms of what they can do, debuffing, buffing characters. Overall, it's been fairly interesting to see what I can allow other people to do and or build up myself.
Celeste, now that we're talking about Celeste, I do want to talk about some of her origins here. Celeste started out as an NPC. She was the party's guide out onto a place called the Ordai Glacier. When Shane decided he wanted to play a different character, he just picked her up because the funny thing was, the other players had decided by talking to Celeste and essentially forcing me to create the backstory for her that they were going to do her personal quest.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of became and it has been a massive part of the campaign the whole time. And that's just how our games run. It's a lot of sandboxy stuff. It's a lot of player generated plot. But today, and we might talk more about that game or something. It's sort of freestyle here going on. But Shane, we were going to be talking about like some of the world building stuff. What's kind of like piqued your interest or struck your fancy about the world of Air itself?
So far, I really enjoy about the World of Air is that it has a history. Pre-existing history for a world is always a hard one. And one of the things I really like about it is that our ancestors don't necessarily know more about it than we do. Which is the precursor type race, my ancestors were so much better at this than we were, which is a fairly heavy trope that exists in fantasy and some elements of sci-fi that isn't in play here. Our ancestors are people who got teleported here by gods. When our world was being destroyed, and we got to live because of that. But we lost a lot of stuff in the process, and now it's a couple hundred years later, and almost 1,000 years later, if I'm correct here in the history. 1,500 years later, and we are now recovered, but we're discovering that there are like many years ago there was a cataclysm here, that there were people who used to live here but they don't live here anymore, and they did something and we don't know what's going on with that. And then of course there's also the history of what's going on in terms of there was a big old movement by the Hylian to try and take over the entire world, and that didn't end up working out, but now there's like a council that tries to deal with things to try and make sure so people don't go off and try and conquer the world again, and just all sorts of interesting things that mean that the world has history. Now, this is just great because it gives you a realm to play in. that history is not something that you find most commonly among a lot of the RPG settings that you find all over the place. So just being able to play and see and possibly even, be a historian who can actually talk about the history given the book type framework that he's built and everything along those lines really is a great way to play with this.
In your character in particular, you have a connection with history through the spirit dose and stuff and everything, so it lets you kind of explore and dig in where other characters wouldn't be able to. And something else, these kind of mysteries, especially, I know it makes people worry a lot when it's connected to a book, that the book is going to take over or the meta plot is going to take over. A lot of these sort of unspoken mysteries are there for your DM to decide what's going on. Mm-hmm. What I have go on in this game is not going to be what happens in everyone else's game, and it's not every one of these plot points is going to be a thing in the books. There are some that are just things in the setting that I've created that aren't, and I can promise as the writer, are never going to be in the books. It's just there for the players and the DMs to play with.
Which is a great thing because a lot of books make the mistake that everything has to be dictated, and other systems don't give you enough to create the setting with your players. So this is a good medium place where I happen to like things to be, in terms of here's a bunch of things that have happened, here's some various things that could happen, here's a bunch of creatures that exist in the world. You may end up having your party trying to figure out where they came from or trying to stop them from showing up in major populated areas. But maybe your party is not that type of party, and instead they want to make those things show up in major populated areas. And all of those fun things. But of course, as always, the game is a guide to allow you to set up this world. It's not necessarily have to keep to it, but it gives you a lot of tools for building that environment that allows for a lot of that free flow and improvisation that I found that a lot of RPGers really enjoy.
Speaking of that free form, you guys have ended up going to a lot of cities, a lot of different environments throughout your adventure, since you guys decided that you didn't want to deal with the main bad guy and just decided to go to a whole other continent. What of those different cities and those different areas, did you have anything that was your favorite there?
So on the world tour that we're taking, because we are basically trying to hit every major metropolitan area on the world of air, by accident, of course. I would say that my favorite location may end up being Bryshawn. Bryshawn is basically your thieves' port, your place of scum and villainy, such as one famous sci-fi place may call it, because quite simply it's where that type of people gather, and it's what we went and visited. And we have one thief in the party and one dwarf, and let's just say one monk who decided to go and try and roll some locals over. And that did not work out well for him, because he ran into an assassin and ended up having to deal with that. It's not that he couldn't deal with the assassin, it's just that he could not deal with the results of that. Because there was a whole bunch of politicking going on, it was all sorts of crazy. But because it's a thieves' city, you could never tell what's going on from the front end. Who you're talking to may not be the person that you think you're talking to. Everything's hidden away. The laws are not quite as easy to tell because they're hidden. It's all sorts of just bad news for the party we have, who deals much better when things are a little bit more out and open in front of them. And so it was definitely one of the toughest deals that we had to deal with, and it made it one of my favorites.
That's cool. I did not think that was gonna be your answer, because you guys ended up not staying very long because of the assassin situation. The one thing I love about Bryshawn is it is a literal pyramid scheme. The entire city is a giant ziggurat that was built around and then into a hill or a mountain, and each level is ruled by different crime lords and everything, and they ended up just being put into the literal middle of it. And I wanted to see what was going to happen, and once again, I love this party's response to things. It's just like, well, it's this is too tough for us. Nope, we're gonna leave. So, but yeah, I love putting them in different places, letting them for all the playtest groups. Shane is in what I'm calling the home game, because the one that we play in person here where we live. But the fun thing I love is just seeing where I fleshed out these cities, and there are other cities that aren't as fleshed out, but where I fleshed them out, how they react to them, how they deal with each place's quirks and weirdnesses, and apparently how they subvert every group of orphans and street urchins they run into. This is not Shane's fault, by the way.
Yes, we have several party members who enjoy forming companies to have orphans work for them and do odd jobs to give them something to do. It definitely is interesting, but it has definitely both brought up brand new problems and solved other problems. But we've basically crossed the breadth of 2 continents, doing this in basically every major city that we've landed in.
It's honestly partly my fault. I tried to pick their pockets, and then they unionized the orphans across the entire eastern continent, essentially, at this point.
Yeah, that's definitely something that happened. I also play my character as a complete coward who has a ghost who is a basic samurai, a former princely samurai. So how it ends up working is this character will hide behind things and casts buff spells on either the party and or the ghost named Aldolfo. And so she basically just completely hides as much as possible, but still contributes to the party, which I really feel is an interesting way to do it, because you can't really play that way in many other RPGs. You cannot play the coward that is absolutely terrified by these combats, because they're truly not trained for them. Aldolfo is, but Celeste is like, sure, I can do a couple of things, but goodness, I can't swing a sword or anything. And it's just amazing to be able to play what is basically a non-combat character in this setting and still be able to contribute to my friends and colleagues who are playing inside of the game as well. So, and thus, just still have a lot of fun with everyone.
And this kind of takes it into the crunch rather than the world building, but the game is really designed so that you can build your character any way you want and still be able to contribute. Mm-hmm. To the point where we've completely gotten rid of the XP system. It's a milestone, a leveling system. So there's no need for combat. If your group is not combat oriented, you don't have to do it. You can find other ways, and this party has definitely found other ways. I like to say when they should fight, they run. When they should run, they talk, and it somehow works out for them any way around.
I actually can't think of a time when we ran. It's more along the lines of when we should do anything, we talk, and then we try and convince everyone to be on our side anyway, through the power of cooking, no less. We have one of our party members is a master chef who has decided that he will be the best cook ever and offers people, and I mean everyone, his signature dish. It's amazing. And of course he cooks any monster type things that we happen to run into and attempt to improve his cooking and breadth of his various dishes. It is amazing. My character is, and that brings up the expertise part of the system, which I believe helps the characters do that world building as well, because there is definitely an agreement between characters and GMs on how to build the world around them. And part of the answer here is the expertise system, wherein you have your character's background hobby, or in my case, my straight up job, which is navigator. My character is like, I will find the maps in it, and I will be able to lead us from one point to another. The master cook is, of course, cooking. Anything he can relate to cooking, he gets a bonus to, and so that is knowledge about monsters, because of course, how these monsters taste is going to be related. This is pretty amazing, because it means that your characters are always trying to think of why I'm interested in a certain subject, why and how it relates to this expertise, which goes up either at certain levels. I think it's every 5th level,
or you can get the feat that
pops
you up,
or there's a feat that increases it as well. This really allows for character building, and really, like, this is what my character is good at, loves doing. I know for a fact that we have another person in the party who has carousing or something similar in the party.
Yeah, it's like I think she literally has it as Dice Priest, because that's how we've discussed how the Fandamon Priest work.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I also, which does bring us to the gods in this world, which I really enjoy as well. These are the gods who saved us from the end of the previous world. And while they are powerful, they're not as powerful as your usual D&D god set. As such, they don't interfere in too many of the ongoing efforts of the meta people.
Yeah,
whatever you want to call them.
They're really not organized either. You usually have, like, this is the god of fire, this is the... Like, we've got sun and protection, we have, like, law and civilization, and then, like, partying.
Partying and alcohol, and, of course, fighting and might makes right.
Yes.
So, there is some definite interests in those, and, of course, in any party that has a cleric, there's always some interest in the backgrounds of gods. And what's really interesting in the way that this is designed is that your gods don't technically control where their power goes for the casting. So it ends up that, yes, this person who has faith in the party god can in fact practice heresy of the party god, in that, no, hoard all of your alcohol,
yes,
and all sorts of things that may in fact violate how other people believe you should act, but because they believe it so hard, it's partially true.
Right, and even like the quote unquote evil god has followers that are good. Like, they think might makes right, so you can protect people. You can play the bad guy god's cleric in a completely, like, right and good party, and it would be fine.
Yeah, that has been pretty awesome. It's just like, yes, I am misinterpreting my god's thing. No, you're misinterpreting our god's thing. I'm right, you're wrong. And that is always very interesting and fun, because it means that you don't have, like, the cleric being stripped of their powers because they disagree with, the high priest's way of doing things. They believe that their way is right, and it's up to them to convince the people that they are right. Which means you can have an entire nation of basically great, good people worshiping the evil god of might makes right. And it's just like, no, your guys are doing this so wrong.
It's the bending Rodriguez form of worship. No, I'll start my own church with blackjack and hookers. Of course, with Pandemos, they go, well, praise be. See, you're doing it right. But no, I'm doing it. No, shut up. Yeah, it's a lot of, it's trying to be ambiguous in the right places. You know, a lot of games try to put like some ambiguity in certain areas, and it's kind of makes it more confusing or harder to get into character. I think I'm striking a good balance of where it's not completely understood. I mean, it's a. I mean, is that? Am I doing that?
I think so. I mean, as I said, I mean, players get to find out secrets and things about how the world works a lot faster than anybody else. So I would say that I rather enjoy finding out how other about how the about basically the might makes right guy, you know, is really a evil deity who has all of these good people following him, and it's just like, does that have any influence on him? You better believe it. He has like a migraine all the time.
Oh, we haven't talked about small gods.
Oh yes, this is another great one.
Yeah. So the idea here is it's sort of like it's inspired by Discworld's it was small gods, literally. And the idea is that this world is built on a lot of spirit energy, and when there's enough belief and enough confidence in a concept, it creates a small god of that concept. Now the fun part here is when we're talking about like that evil god, he's built a church that's a front. So there are good people that are being duped into believing in this, except they believe so hard in the front that they have created a small god of him.
Eventually, that small god will just fight him and take his place as the real one.
Yeah, I mean that could be a thing in the game world. I mean, you could run a campaign that is all about figuring out that this is happening and just helping accelerate it. Like I could see your characters doing that.
Oh, absolutely. And here's one thing again about our party. Our dwarf is absolutely obsessed with contracts. I mean, 100% obsessed. Well, it's become such an obsession that there is a good chance that eventually we will spawn a small god of contracts. Because, you know, we've been signing contracts for adventuring across the entire continent. We've managed to rent out a crew of a flying airship that we have been in the process of just making amazing by putting all sorts of equipment and hidden passages and all sorts of amazing things and like teleportation circles and all sorts of things. And on the world's going back to the world building note, this is a very steampunky type world, which means that you have the flying airships, you have the various just the amazing like arcanisms of magic and technology working together to build Frankenstein's monsters and
don't forget your steam crawlers. That was a big thing in the
early
setting.
We still have one, but in the early game, the very first thing that we did was purchase a steam crawler, which is like a spider type vehicle that we can use to go up into the mountains and advance up to this plateau that we needed to get up in order to do our mission.
To like help it like crawl up tall surfaces.
It was ridiculous, and they made the mistake of letting my bard character drive. He had like 1 point in drive, but he also used it to dance, so he got his bonuses to it. No one in that vehicle was happy.
Well, then you never failed a check, even with just a +1 to the roll. It's just the dice love you.
That was very correct. I got very lucky on those particular rolls.
Meanwhile, the character who actually did put points into pilot failed and had to be saved by him.
That happened several times, but that's gaming for you. I mean, you're just gonna have the dice do as they please. But yes, and as I said earlier, there is a history to the world. So we were working with the bards as archaeologists, or rather going to rescue some archaeologists, because this is still a D&D adventure type world where we get to go out, fight some monsters, and save some people. and then completely dodge the main plot to go across several continents and and instead then have one of our party members possessed by some undead. So now we have to go all the way back and say, hey, can you help us with this?
I know we abandoned you to your fates 3 months ago, but can you do us a solid?
And so now we're trading them fixing that for fixing our poor possessed teammate, the evil dwarf. Yes, the evil party member was possessed by a more evil person.
We're not entirely sure that the Lich is more evil.
I am, but, you know.
And by the way, I didn't force that.
No,
that
you
was. It's hard to explain outside of context in the short amount of time that we have, but basically they went fishing in a magical dump, found an evil book. Now, undead in this world are not necessarily evil, but this book was clearly evil.
Mm-hmm.
The dwarf accidentally left it in a bag with a body. It became possessed by the Lich. Then they murdered the possessing Lich by essentially atomizing it. And then the dwarf decided to read the book again.
Yep. Let's just say it wasn't smart in any way, shape, or form, but, you know, that's what he did.
So, in the only kind of people that could fix it are people with a certain kind of magic, and it just so happens it's the kind of magic that the bards can deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Again, nothing I did, entirely player-generated plot, has finally, after a year and, 4 months
Yep.
of playtime, has finally gotten them back to the main plot.
Yep, it all the way back there. And I love that the system allowed, and world setting is big enough to allow us to run that far away from the main plot, and things could continue. It was really fun.
Now, of course, and it rarely happens with me, but your characters could stay on the straight and narrow, and there's a lot of stuff that they could do if they had, say, gone back to the city of Harpsfeld. There's all sort of intrigue and stuff. They could have stayed in that city and still mainly avoided the main plot if they wanted to. But I feel like there's a lot that this setting and this game system can offer people. That's why we're getting this out here in this Kickstarter coming up in December. So I hope people turn out and support us to help us bring this to everybody. We've got a few more minutes left here, Shane. Do you want to have a final word on it?
I will say that I really enjoy settings. I'm not too loyal to any particular system. I'm not too loyal to any particular setting either. But I love my settings. I have shelves and shelves of setting books and various just, you know, RPG books. And I really enjoy what Landon has come up with here in terms of what is available in his setting, the customizations that are allowed for the characters, which we didn't really talk about today, but there's many of them and are awesome, and I'm certain he's going to get into another conversation. I really enjoy it. I would probably pick it up just for the setting information, but I actually really enjoy the various aspects of how it all works from a character perspective as well. So a lot of that works together. It's a lot of fun. I definitely say I'm picking it up, so pick it up.
All right, thank you a lot here, Shane. Thanks for coming here and talking with me about this. Again, it's the World of Air. It's coming to Kickstarter in December. Help us turn out and help us out. Thank you, and you guys have a wonderful rest of your day or your night. Goodbye.